You are listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and I'm flying solo this week. Pun absolutely intended. We're talking Aeronautica Landing, the all-new area at Carowinds. Last week, the park held a grand opening, had a media event, and we got to attend. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We've got some interviews that we'll fill in at the back end of the show with Ryan Allen, who's the director of live entertainment, executive chef John Loukas, Ken Parks with Cedar Fair Corporate, and also Clayton Lawrence, who was the creative producer for the land. But I want to talk a little bit kind of about the background of Aeronautica Landing. And believe it or not, Aeronautica Landing was the product of guest feedback all the way back in 2020. And we've got an article on Coaster101 that kind of goes into detail of this survey. But Carowinds sent out a survey in January of 2020 that, they sent out an email to their pass holders, and the email subject was, "We need your help." And there was a survey, and they were basically looking for new ideas for expansion or new themes for expansion. Your guests were tasked to kind of help design that new theme. And what it came down to was there were two different themes. And the first one that they didn't use, which they might use in a later, at another date, we don't know yet, it was called Art Meets Industry, which was the description here was, what was once a busy factory town with mill workers and craftsmen had been abandoned for years. A group of young artists discovered the area and brought new life into the town as they moved in and renovated the old factories into stylish destinations, exciting rides, and breathtaking photo ops. The artist community is now inviting you to come experience the vibrancy, color, and whimsy of their playful creations. Welcome to the Artist Village, where art meets industry. And that would have been a really cool thing. And, for our listeners who are not in North Carolina, when this came out, this immediately struck me as similar to Asheville, North Carolina. Obviously, there's a lot of breweries in the area. It has a really, really good arts scene. They've got a drum circle downtown. They've got all these cool art installations in the downtown area. But the other option, which I think is actually more so of what they went to with Aeronautica Landing, in the survey was known as the Aviation Village. And the description here is, filled with the spirit of invention, exploration, and aviation, you can now take part in the land all about the history of flight. Experience playful bravery of aviators and the inventors old, new, and fantasy to show others you have what it takes to become the next hero of adventure. Engage with rides and destinations inspired by the works of Da Vinci, the Wright brothers, post-war era, and the fantastical world of diesel punk. And while I'm not entirely sure what diesel punk is, even, 3.5 years later at this point, almost 3.5 years, this is definitely, to me, what Aeronautica Landing ended up being. For those of you who are not aware, Aeronautica Landing is the area at Carowinds, kind of located in between Copperhead Strike and Afterburn, the B&M invert coaster that opened in 1999. It was kind of a nebulous area. For many years, the Southern Star inverted swinging ship was there. That was home to Carowinds Action Theater, which later became the Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 3Z Arena. And it also was home to the bumper cars. There were some Midway games. If you go way back in the day, Thunder Road was back there. But, in the last couple years, this area has just been kind of a shell, really. It doesn't really have a cohesive theme, or it hasn't before Aeronautica Landing. It was originally County Fair, and then County Fair went away, and then they brought back County Fair, and then it was Crossroads and Carolina Crossroads, and it didn't really have a whole lot of theme to it. Sometimes they would put some Halloween haunt themes back there. I remember it being the E.F. Bailey's Psycho Circus, or whatever their clown scare zone was. But now with Aeronautica Landing, this area will have 6 rides. 5 of them are brand new to the park, and 4 of those are from Zamperla, the 5th being a Chance Trabant. But the Sixth ride is the bumper cars, which have received all new cars, complete with LED lighting, screens, and there's more vehicles, so they could, more throughput, more capacity. But let's talk a little bit about the media preview itself. This was a media day. It started very early in the morning, and I was talking to a couple of my friends who work at the park. I was like, "What time do you have to get here?" And they're like, 4:30, 5 a.m. And it was just like, okay, we got there about 6:30, and the gates opened at 6:30, and they let us into the area about 7 o'clock. But the first thing that kind of struck me, and we came in through the south gate, is you walk down that hill by Afterburn, and this area it's a complete transformation of the surrounding areas. I mean, no stone was left unturned. They've got brand new concrete that resembles a tarmac that's no longer blacktop. They've got interactive scenery elements. They've got this big statue in the or sculpture in the center of the land called the Founder Sculpture that's kind of dedicated to everyone who has helped. It's dedicated to the history of flight, but to me, I think there's a chance that it's dedicated also at its core to the history of Carowinds. I think the park is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and the copy on that plaque on that sculpture basically says a recognizing everybody who has helped us reach our place in the sky, or reach for the sky for our dreams. And I think it says a lot about aviation, but it says a lot about Carowinds as a park as well. But the new rides, three of them were open, plus the bumper cars, which is now known as Hover and Dodge. But the three new operating rides that were open as part of Media Day, there was the Zamperla Air Racer, which is known as Air Racers. For me, I did not get on this attraction. I took a little bit of video, took some pictures. It was very spin and pukey for me. That's kind of the way it looks. And the best way to describe it is there's six 4-passenger vehicles. They rotate around a center axis, but they are also, while they're rotating around that center axis, they're traveling in a clockwise or counterclockwise motion. I'm not sure which it was. Maybe it's both. But you're constantly, if you're riding this, you're constantly upside down. You're constantly looping sideways. It is very, of the attractions that Carowinds has opened for the 2023 season as far as new attractions, this is the most intense. And it is a ride that for me will be safely observed from ground level. And for the thrill seekers among us, I think it's going to be a really, really exciting attraction. For the maintenance team and the sawdust manufacturers in the Charlotte area, I think it's going to be also a very interesting attraction, and something that, for those who are looking for kind of that major thrill, definitely can look forward to. Also, there is Airwalker, which is a Zamperla disco, and I did get on this one. I don't like the spinning as much, and if you're familiar with the disco, you kind of have a half-pipe shaped track, and you're facing inward towards the center of the ride vehicle. There's 3 rows of 4 on both sides of the kind of the skateboard shaped ride vehicle that is meant to mimic the wing walker exhibitions of past air shows. People would perform on the wings, and that was kind of meant to resemble that. But as you're rocking back and forth on the half pipe, you're also spinning around that central point. A big thing with these Zamperla rides is you're spinning on multiple axes at one time, and it's kind of disorienting at first. The spinning on Airwalker is not that bad, and this was coming from somebody who had 2 donuts as part of the media pre-meal. So the spinning wasn't too bad, but I think this will be a really, really good ride for families to experience together, because again, the thrills are fairly mild. The theming is really cool. They've got this beach kind of sand dune built up, to me resembles the beaches of Kitty Hawk, where obviously the Wright brothers took their first flight, which is a bit of, again, we're here to talk about the history of aviation in this new land, and you don't get any more, there's no more history of aviation without the Wright brothers and taking their first flight in Kitty Hawk, despite the fact what people from Ohio may lead you to believe. The third operating attraction from Zamperla was a Zamperla Nebulas. This is the first Nebulas, and it is known as Gear Spin, but it's the first Nebulas in the Cedar Fair chain. They've started to pop up, a little bit more frequently. I know Hershey Park has recently opened one. There's one at the Adventure Dome in Las Vegas. There's one in the island in Pigeon Forge. They're starting to pop up, but this is one of those flat rides. And when we had Adam Sandy on the show several weeks ago at this point, he talked about how Zamperla was putting out a ride product that can be enjoyed not only by those on the attraction, and the rotating arms of this, they're just, it again, it creates a really kind of weightless sensation as you ride this attraction. But if you're not riding, you can sit there and you probably for hours, honestly, and just watch the rotating arms of Gear Spin and the guests, enjoying their time. I've been on the Nebulas before. I did not get to ride Gear Spin during the media event. I did not fit. So if you have a larger upper body, you might be out of luck on this one. But these Zamperla Nebulas rides, they are so fun, and they are so fun to look at. The lighting package of this, I think once Carowinds is open later at night in the summer, you're going to see a lot of people with long exposure photographs of the lighting package of the lights underneath the seats, and it's going to be it's a really big win. It's kind of the central icon for Aeronautica Landing, other than the founder's statue. But this will be an attraction that people will flock to. And again, the thrills are fairly mild. I think I put on the write-up I did for Coaster101.com that, families of all ages, children, parents, and even some maybe thrill-seeking grandparents, I think can all ride this together and really have a good time. The two attractions that will be taking off later this spring are Gyro Force, which is a chance Trabant. I've never actually experienced one of these, but I believe there is more spinning involved. And there is also the just announced Windstar, which is a Zamperla Windstars. It's an interactive hang gliding ride. So I think you take the concepts of, an attraction like a Dumbo or a Kang and Kodos Twirl and Hurl at Universal Orlando, where you have the opportunity to kind of raise and lower your vehicle, but you do this in a way like you're hang gliding. So you're laying flat and you can interact with the ride in that regard. Both of those will open later this year, again, giving Aeronautica Landing 6 total rides, including Hover and Dodge, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. The theming in this land, and I think we're going to talk, you're going to listen to the interviews we did with Cedar Fair's corporate designers, Ken Parks and Clayton Lawrence, a little bit later in the show. The theming that they have done with Aeronautica Landing, I think, speaks volumes to Cedar Fair's recent kind of forays into creating areas with a story. King's Dominion obviously has Jungle Expedition. Carowinds more recently has Bird Farm and the surrounding area around that. Cedar Point has its Midway coming up this year. I think the theming in this area is definitely a typical step above your typical regional theme park. Obviously, there you could have just plopped in some airplane themed items, some runway lines, but this Carowinds went all out and Cedar Fair went all out. The Midway games have aviation theming. The grounds, there are runway markers that spell out words that are you can find elsewhere in the land. There's play, there's ride, there's racer, R4CR racer, or R4CR. Yes, racer. So, and that's for air racer, but there's, again, no stone was left unturned when coming up with the theming and story of this new land. And as part of that, I think people right now are going to, or they might be sleeping on it a little bit, but as soon as the land kind of gets into its normal everyday operating, it's only been open for 3 days at this point. I know the park is open for spring break this week, but Terminal A, I think at Carowinds, which is the park's new kind of signature chef curated dining option. It's meant to bring together these concepts, takes its inspiration from the high end airport lounge food. And they've got items on the menu like balsamic chicken sliders and heirloom roasted cauliflower and pretzels with beer cheese. Um, it's got a really, really awesome patio that overlooks the entire land, and it's got a great cocktail list, got a good beer list, and it's got its own brand of Woodford Reserve, or its own blend of Woodford Reserve whiskey, which I've never actually seen in the theme park before, but I think that's a really cool partnership. Um, we got to try some of the food at Aeronautica Landing, and this is again, we're things at a theme park, and we had uh, pork belly burn-in sliders, we had charcuterie, we had heirloom cauliflower, we had New York style cheesecake with a caramel drizzle, and these are all items that this is not your father's hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken fingers and pizza. you know th- these parks, and executive chef John Loukas, in the recent years, he's really been able to kind of put his stamp on the park and create menu items, not just at the park for year round operation, but for the festivals, Carowinds, and the great the spring festival that they did last year that I always will call Great Carolina Fest, but I know it's not that anymore. But maybe it is. I don't know. State Line Celebration, that's the name of it. But they have all of these just interesting and unique food items that I would put up against any restaurant in the Charlotte area, especially like a fast casual restaurant, which is a kind of your theme park patron here. But the food is amazing. Aeronautica Landing and Terminal A is going to be that Terminal A patio is going to be just the best watering hole at a theme park in the Southeast. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to set the bar right there. Um, but enjoying a beverage, enjoying some elevated bites and brews, um, getting a bird's eye view of that entire landing, I think is going to be just a fantastic experience for park guests this summer. And then over at Plants vs Zombies, they've kind of created another seating area. That's they've got a. It says they have a brewery. I don't know if they're brewing their own beer or not, but it's really cool. I'm not quite sure what they're going to do with the Plants vs Zombies building, because right now they're using the outside. It doesn't necessarily feel like they're using the inside, but maybe that means there's expansion on the horizon. Who knows? I don't speak for the park. We'll see what happens. Um, but yeah, I think overall, when talking about Aeronautica Landing, is it kind of sets a very high bar for future theme park expansion, especially in Cedar Fair, as it relates to theming and telling a story and bringing in rides that the whole family can enjoy. And I think the park hit an absolute home run with this. Um, this is a park, for the last couple of years, if you go all the way back to 2015 with the addition of Fury 325, or Fury 325 rather, the park has been hitting home runs and at the very least ground rule doubles and triples. For the almost the past decade. You had Fury in 2015, you had Carolina Harbor in 2016, you had County Fair and Camp Snoopy. I don't remember the exact years. I've probably flip flopped those. And then even coming out of COVID with the what ripped or sorry, the Mat Racing water slide, the Grand Carnival, the expanded Winterfest. The park is continuing again just to hit home run after home run, and Aeronautica Landing is the best way to demonstrate that. And but as I've talked, at this point I've been talking for right about 20 minutes, just kind of a soliloquy on Aeronautica Landing. I think it's better that you hear from the representatives of the park themselves. And we've got Ryan Allen, who's the director of live entertainment, past Coaster101 podcast guest. We love Ryan. He loves us, or seems to. He's talking a little bit about Carowinds' 50th anniversary, which we can, we the park is celebrating a milestone birthday this year with 50 years, and this is one heck of a opening present to kick that 50th anniversary celebration off. You're also going to hear from executive chef John Loukas to talk a little bit more about the food in Terminal A and also in Frequent Fryers, the best named quick service restaurant at any theme park in America. Fight me if you think I'm wrong. And then we'll also hear from Ken Parks and Clayton Lawrence from Cedar Fair Corporate, who speak to the design and what it means from a corporate standpoint to kind of be able to bring this new land to life. After these interviews, you'll come back, you'll hear my voice. I will wrap the show up, but thanks for indulging me for the past 20 minutes of talking about Aeronautica Landing, and I hope you enjoy the interviews. And now I'm here with Carowinds executive chef John Loukas. John, welcome to the Coaster101 podcast. How's it going?
Thank you for having me. Excellent. Great day. Great day.
Absolutely. And we are standing outside of the all-new Terminal A. And this, as we stand right here on this patio area, we see the lights, we see the shade. This is going to be kind of the spot to be at Carowinds this summer, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The way I look at it and the way I've been selling this is bring the kids to the park. Mom and Dad, come sit up here, have some bites, have some brews, and let the kids go have all the fun here in Aeronautica.
I love it. And yeah, we sampled some of the food earlier, and if you're listening, head to Coaster101. There's going to be a very thorough review of Aeronautica Landing and everything going on. But the menu for Aeronautica, or Terminal A rather, it is described as elevated bites. And, where did you kind of take your inspiration, and where did the menu come from?
Well, traveling across the country as a chef, you tend to find some time in terminals, right, in airports. So traveling, like I said, through many different airports, we kind of got our ideas as we're sitting around waiting for our flight. I'm going to have a cocktail, and I'm going to have something small to eat, not too heavy, not too light, but right on that spot, right at that middle line there where you can enjoy your flight and enjoy your next trip.
Okay. And what are some of the menu items guests can look forward to this season?
So one of the top sellers so far we could tell is our balsamic chicken sliders.
Okay.
We're doing an awesome pork belly burn end slider. Catering to some vegan vegetarian guests, we are smoking some cauliflower steaks, and we're finishing it with a nice arugula salad and balsamic glaze. Again, nice, light, refreshing items right before you take flight.
Exactly. And I saw those the bacon wrap pimento cheese stuffed jalapenos. That's a lot of adjectives, but I didn't get to try it because I was on the wrong side of the buffet line.
You forgot to say smoked with that one, too.
Smoked, oh my gosh. So these are the elevated bites that are here at Terminal A. Again, kind of the place to be at Aeronautica Landing. Just the expansive view across the entire new land. You can see all the theming, everything. What about the cocktails and the beers and the beverages for our friends who are 21 and over?
We have beverages. We have beers coming from all across the country. Definitely East Coast versions, right? One of my favorite Southern Tier is definitely on our tap. As well as some awesome cocktails that we have our baristas making in the back, and putting a lot of love into those cocktails. So,
okay. Do you have a favorite? I mean, I know it's like asking you to pick one of your kids, but do you have a favorite cocktail or menu item specifically at Terminal A?
My favorite menu item is definitely going to be the balsamic chicken sliders.
Yes.
My favorite cocktail is going to be that Southern Tier on tap. So,
okay. I love it.
Yeah, come on down, enjoy the flight, enjoy the bites and brews, and we hope to see you here at Aeronautica.
And my last question, can we get ginger ale and a Biscoff cookie at Terminal A?
I'm sure we could work something out.
I love it. Thanks, Chef. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks.
Next up, I'm here with Ken Parks, who is the Corporate Director of Creative Development for Cedar Fair. How about that? I got the title on the first try.
I'm proud of you.
And so we're standing here again on the Terminal A patio, kind of overlooking Aeronautica Landing. And in recent years, especially, here in the Southeast, we've got Jungle X at King's Dominion. We've got Aeronautica Landing here at Carowinds. Can you speak a little bit to kind of Cedar Fair's recent visions to, in immersive theming and, building an atmosphere as opposed to no offense to anywhere else in the park, but just plopping down a bunch of rides and just loosely theming something around it.
Yeah, we are, as a company, making a commitment to story as a guiding force. So any of the projects, Jungle X, which you mentioned, is steeped heavily in story. Many times the backstory or the story that we create for the land is meant really to be a tool for us as designers. There are hints to it in the land if you're looking for it. And I know at Jungle X, folks have really gravitated to that story, and they've found all of the kind of Easter eggs that we planted in the land. And we're, like Aeronautica Landing here, it's the same thing. It's based on a story. It's connected. What we try to do is connect our lands to our parks and what the guests want and what feels authentic to them.
Right.
So here at Carowinds, which our theme is a celebration of the Carolinas coming together, you can't have a celebration of the Carolinas and not talk about the Carolinas' influence on aviation. And so that's what Aeronautica Landing is about. Our story is, what if there was a community where aviators and engineers working on new forms of jet propulsion and aerodynamics and just, aerobats, right? The brave, the inspired, the intelligent all come together in one location. And what if they created a community? And so that's really what this land is. That's our theme. It's a celebration of the ingenuity and the bravery that goes behind flight.
Yeah, and I know, when Manny Gonzalez got up and spoke, he mentioned that this was kind of guest-driven. And I know several years ago, in the before COVID times, there was a survey that went out, and Aeronautica Landing, as Afterburn flies by here, Aeronautica Landing was kind of something that kind of came out of that survey. I know it was that, or kind of an artsier district, kind of like Asheville, North Carolina. How do you guys, with the feedback, how is listening to your guests important?
We've always listened to our guests. I think that's what sets us apart, at all of our parks, not just here at Carowinds, but, across our lineup of parks. We really listen to what the guests and what our audience wants. To me, we're always striving, as I mentioned, to find things that feel authentic, an experience that feels authentic to our guests, right, that they can relate to, that resonates with them. So it was no surprise to me that, the audience, our guests, came back with the idea that, we should do something that celebrates a little bit of our history, a little bit of who we are. And so, I get that why they would want something that celebrates aviation and the Carolinas' part in it.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Easter eggs as it related to Jungle X. Have you guys been able to hide any Easter eggs here in Aeronautica Landing that may be hidden or maybe can be found by the eagle-eyed guest?
Well, we always do that. So, and then the fun is not telling you where they are.
That's
right?
Also fair. I had to ask.
Yeah, no, I get it, right? And I don't. I'm accused in my home sometimes by my wife of being a person who spoils, who's a spoiler. So I don't want to do that for our guests.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We'll talk offline.
Sure.
Sounds good. That's all I need. So thank you so much for your time. And now I'm here with Clayton Lawrence, who's a creative producer, yes?
Yep.
For Cedar Fair. And standing outside of Terminal A. And Clayton, welcome to the Coaster101 podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And, we're standing out here, and this area, for those who are familiar with Carowinds, it has gotten a complete facelift. And, from the names of the attractions, the bumper cars, they have a new name, new bumper cars. Even the Fry Shack is now Frequent Fryers. When you were designing this line and kind of taking the creative direction, where were you getting your inspiration from?
So we really drew in on the spirit and innovation of flight. So kind of the past, the present, and then a nod to the future. If you look at our main ID sign, it's made of materials that kind of do that for us. Mm-hmm. So it was really important to look at each individual attraction and understand why does that live in this land and what is its sole purpose. And then from there, start bridging the different attractions together via hardscape and landscape to really create that immersive experience. So, when you come into this land, you'll actually approach on a runway, and then you'll start taxiing around to the different attractions. And just by having those layers of hardscape and landscape and seating to support the attractions, that was our thread that held the land together.
Okay. And with a land like this, and I know there's a lot more inside baseball to it than this, is it Cedar Fair has a ride package they want to bring to a park and you theme around it, or you have a theme and you go to corporate and say, we need these rides for this theme?
So it kind of works both ways. We get a lot of feedback from our guests. We get feedback from the park management. And then we also kind of collect information to understand why are we going and investing in a land, and then understanding capacity and midway flow, making sure that the placemaking and there's enough places to sit and eat and get to hang out in a space. We take all the feedback, and then we start collaborating with our ride manufacturers, with our construction partners, with our design partners. And it's a product of 5 years of work, of a lot of conversation, back and forth, what ifs, and just challenging ourselves to create something that pushes our own comforts and limits.
I love it. And out of the rides, I feel like this might be asking you to pick a favorite child. Do you have a favorite of the rides that are open today, or the rides that are scheduled to open later in the season?
I have not been able to ride two of the rides, which I'm dying to go on Air Racers, and I'm dying to go on Gear Spin. Those are two new rides to our company, so I've ridden a lot of rides in the industry, but I have not been on those two products. So I'm excited to experience those, but I can't. You're right, I can't pick just one. They're also uniquely themed for both the riders and the non-riders. So, I think about my mom a lot when we build these. She will not go on a carousel, could be too fast for her. So she will enjoy watching people go on these things. So we really take that into consideration while designing these as well.
I love it. So I'm here with Ryan Allen, who is Carowinds, the Director of Live Entertainment.
Yeah, good morning. Afternoon or evening, whatever time.
Whatever time you happen to be listening. That's the magic of a podcast.
Exactly.
You could be in your car, you're driving, you're going to pull over, you hear Ryan Allen's voice, and it's like...
It's magic.
But we're here, we're at Aeronautica Landing Media Day. But Ryan, you and I were just talking a little bit ago, Aeronautica Landing is not all that's going on at Carowinds in 2023, obviously.
Yeah.
You guys have a big anniversary this year.
We do. It's our 50th anniversary, our golden celebration. And Aeronautica Landing is just one of the gifts that we have for our guests this year. There's a lot of fun stuff planned for a little bit later. Around Memorial Day in early June, we're really going to be blowing out all the stops to celebrate. But Aeronautica Landing is a great way for folks to start their celebration. Right? As you know, Aeronautica Landing is really tied into the theme and story of the Carolinas, of aviation and adventure. And we're hoping to bring some of those ideas to life as well a little bit later this summer with our party.
I love it. And so what can guests expect? I mean, I know you can't tell me everything. I know I'm looking around my shoulder for Courtney from PR. But what can you tell us that's already been announced or that maybe hasn't been announced yet? What can guests expect?
Yeah, so this summer we're throwing a party that only Carowinds can throw. So on Memorial Day, we opened 3 super exciting shows. 2 of them are returning to us. Music Goes Round and Round, that was with us in 2021, and the 325s down in Thrill Zone, who were with us last year in 2022. We're also bringing in a new show called the Swell Tones. That was at our sister park, Cedar Point, and that'll be a really fun way to celebrate 50 years of music. It's 4 singers who are going to take us through a journey of 50 years of music, doo-wop style, but some fun, interesting twisted things like boy bands and some other favorite hits you might have. Then in early June, we have a really exciting nighttime show called Retrospect, which turns the entire plaza area into the biggest party on the state line. And we have our street party, which will turn County Fair into a giant party also on the other state line, right? The state line goes through a few times. And then we're super excited. Carowinds Theater was a magic house when the park first opened, and we are so excited to bring some of that magic back. That announcement's coming soon, but I will give our Coaster 101 fans the info that there is magic coming back to that space with a really fun and exciting show. And then Carnival comes back as well, so lots of fun stuff happening in the summer. And then again, we've got all of Fall and all of Winterfest as well.
I love it. Awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Of course, we'll see you soon.
Was some really great information in those interviews, and I definitely want to thank Carowinds for having us out to Media Day. Also want to thank Ryan and John and Ken and Clayton for their time. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. If you want to read more about Aeronautica Landing, head to coaster101.com. We've got a long write-up about everything that's going on in the land, from the rides, the theming, the food, the media day, opening day festivities. It's all there. So coaster101.com. We are also on all forms of social media at Coaster101. That's the @ symbol, COASTER 101. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. If you search for us, you can find us. If you're listening, make sure you're also liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, leaving us reviews and ratings on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And a huge shout out to Justin Mabry of JMMD Entertainment for our theme music. And with that, we will talk to y'all again soon. See ya.